So Carlos Sainz, it was who won the Grand Prix, of course, as we said, from Sergio Perez in the first of the Red Bulls, Lewis Hamilton third with fastest lap, Charles Leclerc fourth, Fernando Alonso fifth for Alpine, Lando Norris sixth for McLaren, Max Verstappen seventh for Red Bull, Mick Schumacher eighth, Sebastian Vettel ninth, and Kevin Magnussen 10th. So let's talk about Red Bull now and Sergio Perez. That was a pretty lucky second place, you've got to say, right?
Yeah. So I mean, but what do you think, Matt? I mean, I think Perez got a bit unlucky, didn't he, in that first lap? He got squeezed between two cars. At one point through, was it turn one to turn three? There was almost four cars side by side going through there, and for two cars just to end up losing end plates was a miracle. I thought for sure we were going to have one car in the air backwards. So Perez got unlucky with that, but then he got lucky with the safety car, didn't he? And the safety car was the only reason he was able to finish P2.
Yeah, so that's a good point, isn't it? He had that clash with Charles that Charles caused, as you say. Charles diving up the inside and damaging both cars. Came into the pits, came out in 17th place, 37 seconds off the lead, and was steadily making his way up through the field. But lap 41, that safety car allowed him to get from the hard tyres onto the soft.
Yeah.
So good recovery, which is what we typically see from Sergio, but he was 0.6 of a second off Max in qualifying. And it seems that closeness he had to him on pace at the beginning of the year, that seems to have evaporated a bit.
Yeah, well, let's just talk about that qualifying, though. I mean, for to be in the wet, to only be 0.6 off Max Verstappen, it's a good job, I think. We know Perez is pretty handy in the wet also, but he's not particularly special. You know, I mean, in his previous team, Lance Stroll always used to beat Perez in the wet, if you might remember. Remember Turkey? Where Stroll had his pole position. So, and Verstappen's, he's such a weapon in the wet. He'll be kicking himself not taking pole position. You know, every time he went out in the wet in qualifying, I just watched him. I was just like, it was really quite special. You know, and I love those conditions because that's where drivers really excel. And it's not just about doing one lap. In every condition in qualifying, as it dried, and as it got wet again, Verstappen was super quick. Another driver that was like that was Alonso, you know. Yes, Sainz got it together at the very end, and he put on pole, but even he said it wasn't a special lap. I think it was more a case of Leclerc and Verstappen not putting together the laps when it was at the very end.
And there was also a point, wasn't it, in qualifying when Max in Q3 spun, and despite having done a complete 360 spin, crossed the finish line and was third fastest at that point, despite that spin. So I think you're right. It was an unfortunate. It was an unfortunate qualifying, and it was also an unfortunate race because I think he had the pace clearly to win, and if he hadn't had the problem with seat, they don't know exactly what it was, do they? They think perhaps floor damage on his Red Bull car that happened on about lap 20, perhaps caused by running over some. David was saying perhaps because until there's a proper strip down of the car, they won't know exactly what it was. And his just pace was horrible after that and ended up, as we saw in the results, 7th. I suppose that was to some degree damage limitation for him, really.
Yeah, damage limitation. I mean, you know this as well, Matt. I mean, for a driver to feel like you have a puncher, then you know something's very seriously wrong, you know. So, he could have lost a chunk of downforce if that car felt like it had a puncher. So to carry on and finish, you know, what the team did to help with that, though, was adjust the front wing. I think I heard the commentator saying, "Oh, okay, so the next pit stop, they're going to try and fix the floor." Didn't see anyone fixing the floor. There's no way you can fix the floor during a pit stop. There's just not enough time. But what you can do is you can take off a lot of front wing, and that's what they did. They took off some holes of front wing, so at least there would be more of a balance. It wasn't so oversteery, and even though the grip is still not there, it's still going to be slow. The balance of the car would have been better.